First of all, Jordan, nice to meet you.
Great to meet you too, man.
We'll see you Tuesday at Golf and Guitars. Obvious question to start off with, since you're coming out for that. Are you a golfer at all?
Um, I have golfed. I'm more of a danger, but that makes it exciting. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody knows what's going to happen. They have to pay attention to you.
I use the word "for" a lot. I'll just say that.
Jordan, your EP is excellent. And I'm not just saying that to shine you on. The songwriting on that is like, it's beyond your years. Like, you're a young guy and you're just starting out. And there is such, I don't mean to get deep so fast in the interview, but I mean, your writing really is sort of next level. You're a really sensitive guy. And this album almost seems like it was a cathartic thing for you.
Well, man, first of all, thank you so much for saying that. I'm really blessed to get these songs. I do think it's a spiritual process to get to write. And so whatever ends up coming up is kind of bigger than you. So thank you for saying that. But yeah, man, it was like free therapy, honestly. I got to air out a lot of things and really kind of deal with some stuff that I hadn't really addressed at any point. Since they've happened and getting to put them to song, it really kind of makes it a lot easier to say it or at least for me, so to have a label that wants to turn into a project and a bunch of people that want to get behind it and, radio stations that want to support it is, it's more than I could ask for,
For those who don't know, and you are a new artist, so we're introducing you to a lot of people. Your dad passed away when you were 11.
Yep.
And he obviously meant the world to you. I'm sure you meant the world to him. Several of these songs talk about him, and you can tell that you can tell you're working through some things. Did you know going in that that's what this project was going to be, or did it sort of find its way there?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know that I was going to do a project, I guess is the best way to say that. So it started COVID. I'd been writing for 4 years professionally with a publishing company for other artists. And then COVID hit, and I was going to have to move back to Florida because we had a lot of stuff going on with my wife. We found out she was pregnant, and so we were excited about that. But, all that, the uncertainty with the industry, all that stuff kind of was pushing me in the direction of being like, man, we probably need to pack it up. It's been fun. And I kind of had a few months left, and I was like, man, I'm going to see if I can't, while I'm writing with the best writers on the planet, tell my story, to have something to give to my son. The thought was it was just going to be a Dropbox link with a bunch of tunes to where if in, 8 years Maverick was like, hey, man, why was I born in Nashville or whatever? I could be like, here you go, do with this as you will. And that was kind of the whole thought behind it. It was just kind of like a personal journal that I was going to hand down. And I didn't expect it to get, the service it's gotten. So, I mean, if that answers your question, I knew that I was going to write write an autobiography. So there's that, but I didn't know I was going to get to make it into a project.
What's so cool about it is, and I've read an interview with you where you were talking about how personal these songs were, and there were moments where you're like, is this going to connect with anybody? But like you say, this was more something you were doing to pass along to your kid than anything else. And yet, like, the number one thing that I've seen from people who have listened to this album is they can relate. Like, and I'm one of them. Like, every track on there, it's not my story, but at the same time, it's a story we all share in some capacity, especially if somebody's lost a dad or a parent. Did that surprise you at all that people have been connecting with these songs in a way that maybe you weren't expecting?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was the first thing I noticed, that song Firebird. So that's about a really specific vehicle, like it's an old car. Not a lot of people have it. And I was like, man, this was just for me. It's just, me and a buddy wrote it. And it was just kind of like telling that story of like how I relate that car to my father. And it's just kind of like it's a story song. It literally just tells the whole story of when he bought it, what was going on, how old I was. and I didn't imagine anybody because it's mine. So why would anybody relate to that? But when we put it out, I mean, immediately I'm getting people messaging me saying, that reminds me of my, grandma's Buick or my
Mm-hmm.
uncle's, GMC Sierra or whatever. And even beyond that, I had some people say they relate it not necessarily to a car, but like an item. Like I had one lady I was doing an interview with. She was like, I have this necklace that my grandma gave me before she passed away. And that song reminds me of that relationship I have with it. And it's like so cool to see people insert their own humanity into something that was just me, kind of venting a little bit.
The line in that song that got me, and I relate to it in terms of for several years I had my dad's '87 Toyota pickup truck. It was a
Yeah, man.
it was automatic bench seats. It was base model. My dad didn't have any frills. There was no air conditioning in it. But when he passed on, he wanted us to keep it in the family. Unfortunately, it got stolen. But my boys learned to drive in that vehicle. Both of them had the chance to drive Grandpa's truck, and the line in that song about your dad isn't where the gravestone is and where the dirt is. I'm going to mess the line up, but you know it.
Yeah.
But your dad is there in that car. Your dad is there in that memory. That was a bolt.
Well, man,
I'm tearing up right now. It's such a perfect line. My dad isn't there in the ground. My dad is in these things of his that I remember him through.
well, I'll tell you honestly, the thing that made that line kind of come out, I had one of my uncles, because my dad, he's buried, without getting too morbid, he's buried right down the road from my grandma's house where he grew up in Jacksonville. And all my family, all his siblings and everybody live around there. And one of my uncles, I was talking to him and I was like, man, do you ever go to the gravesite? Because I didn't go often because for my reasons or whatever. And he's like, man, I don't go, but I have this thing of your dad's on my mantle on the fireplace. And I have coffee with him every morning. And that thought kind of brought that line to me because it was like, man, I mean, I mean, that's where we put him, but that's not where he is. He's what the legacy left behind. That's where he is. And that was kind of what brought that line about.
I love that. And that to me is like the most pure essence of great country songwriting is what you're talking about right there. So nice job.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And the rest of the album too is there are some other songs on there where your dad's referenced. The first single, "Death and Taxes," is that parental advice that we all get from our parents, and you do a great job with that. But you also talk about your relationship with your wife, and you do it in a way that puts a little bit of a spin on it, which I also think is cool. The whole EP, it's only 7 songs, but I feel like I kind of got to know you.
Yeah.
Through it, which is pretty remarkable. Did you intend for it to be sort of as autobiographical as it turned out to be?
I wanted it to be once. Well, I'll say this. Like I said, I was just kind of inherently when you're journaling, when you're writing song, and for me, journaling is just writing songs because we do that every day as songwriters, right? And so, like I knew that was going to be as close to the chest as it ended up being, but once we started working on the album, and a lot of the songs that ended up being on like that project on the EP and then the album that's going to be coming up were written after we started recording. So I knew we were doing this. So I kind of had that mindset. It like, even from like an artist point of view of being like, because you have to be, hey, how do we make this commercially viable? Are we writing ourselves out of fans? You have to have that conversation with yourself. Thankfully, I have got a label that at no point has asked me to bend at all or compromise at all on what this album's about. And also the answer to the concern of, hey, am I losing fans? If I'm too honest, the answer is no. Because what I realized is if you want to compete with the biggest artists, like, you have to lean in on your strength. And the strength that I have that no other artist has is my story. And so I had to lean in on it because that's the only thing I got compared to them. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if I want to compete in this industry we're all friends and everything, but there's only so many slots. So it's like, if you're trying to compete in that world, I think the best thing you can do, or the best thing I could do, was lean in on my strength, which is me.
Well, and I think people can sense authenticity and sincerity and that's what this project has. I want to ask you, only got a couple of minutes, but I do want to ask you about a song that you wrote for Riley Green that he recorded with Randy Owen, legendary singer from the legendary band Alabama. What was it like for you, young, pretty much unknown songwriter, to get a freaking legend like Randy Owen to be singing part of your song?
Man, it was so cool the way that happened too, because actually sitting right here, most of COVID, I wrote right here, just like this Zoom. And so that was the second Zoom write I'd ever done. And I wrote it with Ray Fulcher, Gary and Charlie from Muscadine Bloodline. And we were sitting there and we'd been doing these writes just to kind of keep from going crazy. And so we write this song or get half of it done. And I sent it to my publisher and I did the recording right here, sitting here. And it's just like a voice memo. And he sends it to Riley, and Riley immediately goes, "Hey, can I finish this song? Can I finish writing it?" And we're like, "Whoa, okay, yeah." And so he sends back his idea or what he wanted to do for like the rest of the song, like the bridge and the alternate chorus. And we were fired up. And so he was like, "Man, I'm going to cut it." So we knew that. And then it was quiet for a little bit because, you got to record it and all that stuff. And then a couple months later, I just get a text. And it's just like a little audio bite, and it didn't have any title or anything. I was listening to it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a song. That's a song." And then after that second chorus hits, and I go, "Oh my gosh!" So like I had no warning or anything, and it was like I got a twofer. That was my first major label cut was with Riley, and I got that came along with it. I got the lead singer Alabama. So
Did you know right away it was Randy Owen?
no, I did. Yeah, absolutely, man. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was just like, holy smokes. So, but then but it made sense too, because I knew that Riley and Randy had kind of kicked up a friendship doing some of that. I think there was like a big benefit in Alabama after a tornado, and they kind of became friends from that. And I've known Riley for a little bit, so I kind of knew that thing. So it made sense.
I'm going to wrap this up. I'd love to talk to you more when you get out here on Tuesday. I just want to tell anybody coming to Golf and Guitars for the performance, pay attention to this guy's songs. I'm sure you're great on stage, but pay attention to the lyrics. You really are a great songwriter already, and I'm excited to see how far your star rises in the next few years. Authenticity like this doesn't come along an awful lot.
Man, I appreciate that so much, and I can't wait to try to golf. But I will play songs. I can do that right. I don't know if I can golf right, but I'll definitely get the songs figured out right.
Hey, the golf part doesn't matter. It's a day of fun. We have listeners that come out and they cheer you on and stuff, and there are plenty of drink stations along the way. So you're gonna have a good time no matter what.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on this thing. I can't wait to get golfing with you.
You bet. Jordan Fletcher, thank you very much.
Thanks, man.